ADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's 6 o'clock in Dakar, 7 o'clock in Porto Novo. Good evening and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world. We are live on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. President Mahama urges the African Union to adopt homegrown policies to halt dependency on external financial aid.
One of the fundamental pillars of reform is AU's financial autonomy. The over-reliance on external partners for funding compromises the organization's independence and ability to set its own agenda.
Nigeria mourns the loss of 22 soldiers in an anti-terrorist clash that neutralized 70 insurgents. Liberia's President Joseph Boakai presents the State of the Nation address themed Rescue to Development.
On sustainable health financing, we are making progress with the National Security Health Insurance Scheme and the bill to create a National Health Equity Fund for universal health coverage.
And Burkinabe Trade Union calls for dialogue between government and the population to correct disturbing social trends. Details of these stories and more coming up shortly. Stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
Many thanks for staying on our broadcast and welcome to our listeners within and beyond the sub-region. Newslink begins with some development from the African Union, where President John Dramani Mahama has expressed concern over the union's reliance on external funding, indicating that it impedes the organization's ability to set its own agenda. In an address delivered at the opening session of a retreat on the inauguration of institutional reforms of the African Union currently underway in Nairobi, Kenya, John Dramani Mahama stressed the need for financial independence for the AU. He also called for the urgent implementation of the Kigali decision on financing the Union, a resolution adopted by the African Union heads of state and government at the 2016 AU summit in Kigali, Rwanda. President Mahama speaks.
Efficiency must be the guiding principle in how we conduct our affairs, ensuring that our policies and programs translate into real change for our people. We must adopt mechanisms that prioritize accountability, transparency, and value for money, ensuring that every resource is maximized for the benefit of the African people. Your Excellencies, one of the fundamental pillars of reform is AU's financial autonomy. The over-reliance on external partners for funding compromises the organization's independence and ability to set its own agenda. The implementation of the Kigali decision on financing the Union must be expedited. A self-reliant African Union is not just a vision we have, it is an imperative to achieve. Your Excellencies, today we gather not just as leaders but as stewards of a vision of an Africa that is united, self-reliant and prosperous. This vision was first articulated by the founders of the Organization of African Unity and later advanced by the establishment of the African Union, and it remains our guiding light and principle. Yet as we stand at the crossroads of opportunity and challenge, we must critically reflect on our progress and recalibrate our strategies to meet the evolving needs of our continent. The reform agenda of the African Union is a bold and necessary initiative aimed at transforming our continental body into a more efficient, financially independent, and effective institution.
President of Ghana, John Dramani Mahama, speaking at the ongoing retreat of the African Union on the implementation of institutional reforms in Nairobi, Kenya. The Nigerian Defense Headquarters has confirmed that 22 soldiers have died and more than 70 insurgents have also lost their lives during an ongoing military operation in the Timbuktu Triangle, a terrorist stronghold in Borno State, northern Nigeria. According to a statement issued by the Director of Defense Media Operation, Major General Edward Buba, the incident happened during a counter-terrorism operation carried out by the troops of Operation Hadinkai, which began on January 16, 2025 and aims to dismantle terrorist enclave in the strategic region. Augustine Colley has more in this report.
According to General Buba, the operation saw several clashes with the insurgents. Among the neutralized insurgents were 3 senior commanders, including Tahar, commander of the terrorist special forces, Malam Umar, commander of operations, and Abu Yasid, brigade commander. General Buba further added that the troops of Operation Hadim Kai in the northeast of the country carried out a clearing operation in an enclave recognized as a terrorist stronghold with the nickname the Timbuktu Triangle. This operation, which is based on 3 axes, he said, is aimed at dismantling the terrorist presence in the region and began on January 16, currently ongoing. He said the terrorists had used lethal tactics, including improvised explosive devices, suicide bombers, and drones to try to slow the troops' advance. He added that the terrorists deployed improvised explosive devices, man-borne devices, or suicide vehicles to hamper the troops' attacks. However, the soldiers, who are well versed in these tactics, repelled these attempts, including by shooting down amateur drones used by the insurgents. Despite these tactical successes, Buba acknowledged the loss of 22 soldiers, while calling on the media to exercise restraint in publishing the names of the victims in order to allow the official announcement to the families of the missing soldiers.
Augustine Colley filed the report. And as Nigeria grapples with an alarming education crisis, a staggering 10.2 million children at the primary level are currently out of school. The northwestern states of Kano, Jigawa, and Katsina make up 16% of this figure. UNICEF, on an observance of the International Day of Education, called for urgent reforms in these regions to address the dire situation. Our Banjul correspondent Usman Umar reports.
Rahama Rihud Farah, UNICEF's chief of field office in Kano, at an event organized to mark the day, described the educational landscape in northwestern Nigeria as critically concerning. Currently, nearly 2.2 million children in the region are without access to schooling, with Jigawa and Katsina reporting 337,861 and 536,112 out-of-school children, respectively. The alarming statistics extend to basic literacy, with only 1 in 4 Nigerian children capable of reading and understanding a simple sentence or performing basic arithmetic. Farah speaks further on this.
The tests that conducted by the Federal Ministry of Education in 2022 found that foundational learning rates stand at 11% or lower in 3 states of Kano, Jigawa, and Katsina. For instance, only 2% of primary school learners in Jigawa State have foundational reading skills, while less than 1% have numeracy skills. Although Kano figures appears to be better than Jigawa, which is about 9.6% for reading and 11.2% for numeracy, these figures are still way lower than the national averages of 26% for reading proficiency and 25% for numeracy, respectively.
UNICEF says it is addressing education challenges through initiatives like cash transfers for vulnerable families, enrollment drives, school grants, integration of Quranic schools, and improved teacher training. Mr. Farah emphasized the need to consider climate change impacts, which he says have affected over 200,000 Nigerian children's education. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Still in Nigeria, the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and the organized labor have denounced the 50% increase in the telecommunication tariff. In a lawsuit against the Nigerian government and the Nigerian Communication Commission (NCC), SERAP accused the two of an arbitrary, unconstitutional, and unfair, as well as unreasonable increase in telecom tariff. SERAP, in a statement signed by the Deputy Director, alleged that the tariff hike infringes on the right of the citizens to freedom of expression and access to information. He labeled the unilateral decision by the NCC to approve the 50% hike in telecom tariff as arbitrary, unconstitutional, and unfair. For its part, the organized labor said this action contravenes both the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act of 2018 and international human rights standards.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Let's turn attention to Liberia because President Joseph Boakai is currently delivering his first State of the Nation address, SONAM, making 1 year in office under the theme Rescue to Development, implementing the Arrest Agenda. President Boakai's inaugural constitutional address took place on January 22, 2024, shortly after his inauguration. It was a moment filled with high expectations, especially from the leader with extensive public service experience, as he outlined a transformative national agenda focused on crucial sectors such as security, agriculture, health, and the rule of law. However, the question remains, have his promise been put into action? As Liberians at home and abroad keenly express interest in the address. We can listen to him now.
We are pleased to announce that with the support of the Chinese government, we have broken ground for the construction of a 16 million national clinical and diagnostic laboratory at number 14 hospital, military hospital in Margibi County. On sustainable health financing, we are making progress with the National Security Health Insurance Scheme and the bill to create a National Health Equity Fund for universal health coverage will soon be submitted for your consideration. As part of the groundbreaking health initiative, we are addressing the cardiovascular issues in Liberia. In collaboration with the University of Ghana Medical Center, UGMC, we are establishing the state-of-the-art cardiothoracic GFK. The partnership emphasizes cross-training medical professionals equipped in advanced facilities and performing life-saving surgeries. A notable success in the open heart surgery performed on 64-year Mr. Fokpa Culver at the UGMC, with all expenses covered by my administration. By mid-2025, our goal is to perform some of these critical surgeries locally at GFK, significantly improving access to cardiac care for all Liberians. Poor sanitation, inadequate clean water supply, and aging infrastructure, especially in Monrovia and other cities, have long posed challenges.
And that's Liberia's President Joseph Boakai presenting the State of the Nation address today in Parliament. Let's turn attention to the Sahel region, particularly in Burkina Faso, where the Trade Union Action Unit, UAS, has expressed concern over the disturbing trends such as kidnapping and the high cost of living in the country. At the General Assembly, the UAS drew the authorities' attention to the need to respect fundamental freedoms. The union are also calling on the transitional government to engage in dialogue to discuss important issues affecting the population. More details in this report by our Ouagadougou correspondent Martin Kaba and voiced by Imo Edits.
At a general meeting on Saturday, the trade union centers, UAS, expressed their concerns. The centers are concerned not only about the security situation in Burkina Faso, but also about restrictions on freedoms in the name of the fight against terrorism. Olivier Guy Vadrago is the monthly president of the Trade Union Action Unit.
We don't need to be a little more divided or even a little more united in the fight against terrorism. The fact that there are kidnappings, the fact that there are indeed imprisonments, and so on, the fact that there are requisitions leads to debates among our people, which leads some to be for, some to be against, others to call others stateless, and so on. It's not interesting.
Another topic discussed at the general meeting was the decline in Burkinabe purchasing power. The trade union said they have observed an increase in the price of necessities. Olivier Guy Ouadraogo says the authorities have remained silent in the face of the changing economic situation.
So if workers don't have purchasing power and we don't develop industries, who are the people to consume? That's the question. So all this does indeed merit reflection, and I think that it's through reflection and debate that we will arrive at solutions that satisfy.
The UAS took the opportunity of this general meeting to call on the authorities to engage in dialogue, a dialogue that will make it possible to iron out all the points of contention between those who govern and the governed. Leaders of the union insist that a dialogue is to ensure the well-being of the Burkinabe people.
A report by our Ouagadougou correspondent Martin Kaba and voiced by Imo Edet. Still in the Sahel, the transitional government in Niger has launched an investigation into the operations of certain non-government organizations, NGOs, for their potential link to terrorist groups. This decision was announced in a statement by the Minister of Interior, who on behalf of the state expressed doubt about the impact of these NGOs, whose number has increased in recent years. General Mohamed Tumba expressed a critical view of local governance, which he believes plays a crucial role in the vision of the National Council for the Safeguarding of the Homeland. The Nigerian Minister of Defense reported that irregularities have been observed in several communes across Niger. Additionally, General Mohamed Tumba addressed the involvement of development associations and NGOs in regions affected by insecurity. These organizations have been accused of colluding with terrorist groups operating within Niger. You're still listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM Dakar, Senegal. We're also live on Facebook at WADR English Service, as well as YouTube at WADR News. Here's a reminder of our top stories. President Mahama urges the African Union to adopt homegrown policies to halt dependency on external financial aid. Nigeria mourns the loss of 22 soldiers in an anti-terrorist clash that neutralized 70 insurgents. Liberia's President Joseph Boakai presents the State of the Nation address themed Rescue to Development. Still ahead in this news, Mali impounds more than 200 pieces of equipment during operations against illegal mining. We also have the guest interview on sports. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Let's turn attention to Mali at the moment, because the government has announced a major win in the fight against illegal mining in different regions of the country during a large-scale operation. Hundreds of equipment were seized and several networks of illegal miners were dismantled at the end of the operation. As Eche Atiso reports, Mali, like other countries in the sub-region, is also suffering the environmental, social and security consequences of illegal mining.
The large-scale operation against illegal mining, according to the Malian Minister of Mines, Professor Amadou Keita, was due to the unsustainable impact of unregulated mining activities. During the operation, 61 illegal mining sites were dismantled and pieces of equipment, including 286 excavators and 63 vehicles, were impounded. The minister assured that progress has been made, but much remains to be done, essentially in the implementation of short, medium and long-term measures to fight against illegal mining, increased coordination between the various stakeholders, as well as increased surveillance of risk areas and offering economic alternatives to local populations tempted by these activities are some of the measures to be considered by the state. Regarding damages done, Professor Keita said illegal operators have caused enormous damage to the environment, including the destruction of fauna and flora, the contamination of waterways. These illicit activities also fuel criminal networks, including terrorist organizations, endangering social peace and the stability of the country.
Eche Atiso filed the report. Elsewhere in the Gambia, President Advisor Henry Gomez has described former President Yahya Jammeh's recent statement as rhetoric. Gomez assured that if Jammeh ever returns to the Gambia, he will be arrested and face prosecution. This comes as the former Gambian strongman last week said he will be back to the country to reclaim his party's leadership. Sankule Janko has more in this report.
In an audio message last week, former Gambian President Yahya Jammeh spoke on issues including the leadership crisis in the party he founded. Exiled in 2016, Jammeh vows to return to the Gambia and still stand free of any prosecution.
Whether anybody likes it or not, by the grace of the Almighty Allah, I'm coming. Threats of sending me to jail. Let them wait until I arrive there and we see who's going to jail. I will come. Just stay and arrest me and put me in jail. You think I'm afraid of going to court?
Jammeh's statement stirred conversations and reaction from different quarters about the possible face-off to the justice system or a publicity stunt. But speaking with an emphatic tone, Presidential Advisor Henry Gomez says the ex-president is not coming back cognizant of what awaits him.
For those of you who I hear talk about about Jammeh or getting scared that Jammeh will come back. Jammeh is not coming anywhere. If Jammeh comes back to this country, I assure you, we will tie him. We'll put him in one place and we will take him to the courts.
Gomez further urges Gambians not to entertain Jammeh's rhetorics.
The issue is not about President Barrow, and Gambians must not take it as such. Jammeh can't bother anybody. It's about Adama Barrow. It's not about MPP. It's not about UDP. It's about the Gambia. We have passed that stage, and Gambians neither accept nor tolerate it.
Gomez's response comes days after human rights activist Madi Jobate criticized the government for its failure to respond to Yahya Jammeh and assured victims of justice. Jammeh, who has been in exile in Equatorial Guinea since losing an election in 2016, could soon face prosecution. Recall last December, ECO's heads of state approved the setting up of a special court for the trial of crimes committed under his regime from July 1994 to January 2017.
Sankole Chanko with our reports.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
In our guest interview this evening, we go back to Nigeria, where the Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, and the Organized Labor have denounced the 50% increase in telecommunication tariffs in a lawsuit against the Nigerian government and the Nigerian Communication Commission (NCC). SERAP accused the two of an arbitrary, unconstitutional, unfair, and unreasonable increase in telecom increase. SERAP, in a statement on Sunday signed by Deputy Director Kolowole Wadr, alleged that the tariffs hike infringes on the right of the citizens to freedom of expression and access to information. Our guest is BM Joshua, a public affairs analyst who speaks with WADR on this situation.
And this is especially at a time where there is rising or a very high cost of living. Economically, things are extremely hard for the Nigerian population. So an increase in telecommunication hike is one that would be concerning. However, in their suit against the president and the NCC, which is the National Communications Commission, I believe the emphasis there is on the fact that is it reasonable to have this 50% telecom hike now, and is it unconstitutional? And because this is a situation where there are quite a lot of implications for this 50% increase, such as the access to information and communication, because a higher telecom cost could restrict access to very critical information and various sources and services as well. And generally, one particular thing I believe is the freedom of expression, because with a higher telecom price, it means that it could suppress public discourse, activism, and even civic engagement. So when you look at the move by SERAP to counter or question the unlawfulness or unfairness or how unreasonable 50% telecom tariff hike is based on the implications that this could have on the Nigerian people.
Don't you see this as a medium of raising revenue for the telecommunication sector?
Well, in terms of raising revenue, there are various measures that have been put in place in terms of raising revenue. But one question Nigerians often ask is the transparency to the processes of this revenue generation and some level of transparency towards processes. So while this move can be said to be a means to generate revenue, antecedent or historically there has been that doubt whether or not these initiatives are actually being followed through transparently and as it should be conducted.
What do you think are some best measures that the Commission could use in addressing telecommunications tariffs?
To a great extent, the NCC could first of all conduct a thorough review of the cost structures and ensure that any tariff adjustments are actually fair, justifiable, and not exactly exploitative. I believe that is one of the most important approaches to the situation. And for the fact that it's a sudden increase, I believe ideally with the situation in the country, there should be a phased approach towards any increase at all. it should be a phased increase, not an immediate jump into a 50% increase, especially at a time when the cost of living is especially high.
BM Joshua is the public affairs analyst, and he speaks on the ongoing issue in Nigeria regarding tariff increment of 50%. And it's time for sports with Sankule Chanko.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. More than 90 countries, including Africa, the Middle East, Europe, and North and South America, will watch the final of the CAF Africa Cup of Nations AFCON 2025 draw on Monday night, 27 January 2025. The draw will be conducted at Mohamed VI Theatre in Rabat, Morocco. Meanwhile, procedure for the CAF Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2025 final draw has been revealed ahead of the draw tonight. The 24 qualified teams will be drawn into 6 groups, each containing 4 sides, with host nation Morocco placed at the head of Group A. Current AFCON champions Côte d'Ivoire will also head one of the other 5 pools as they sit in Pot 1. The remainder of the qualified teams will be placed in Pots 1 to 4 based on their FIFA World Rankings as of 19 December 2024. Pot 1 consists Morocco, Senegal, Egypt, Algeria, Nigeria, and Côte d'Ivoire. Pot 2 has Cameroon, Mali, Tunisia, South Africa, DR Congo, and Burkina Faso. Pot 3 meanwhile has Gabon, Angola, Zambia, Uganda, Equatorial Guinea, and Benin. And the final pot, that is Pot 4, consists Mozambique, Comoros, Tanzania, Sudan, Zimbabwe, and Botswana. The top 2 teams in each pool, as well as the 4 best third-place teams, will qualify for the round of 16 at the CAF AFCON 2025. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting live from Dakar, Senegal, 94.9 FM. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Maudo Juf and Umudanyogo for the technical assistance. Do interact with us on all of our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook at WADR English Service. I am Christopher Ticho. Good evening and enjoy the rest of our broadcasts.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and a very